My sister told me that I stole my husband from her and confessed to him on her wedding day, so I exposed her to her husband and ruined her life. My sister and I have always been close. Despite the small age gap, she acted like my second mother, so I never doubted her. Let's call her Jane. Let's call my husband Bob and I met at uni. He excelled in academics, sports, and looks and was well known around campus because of that, so obviously, I had a crush on him. Jane also attended the same uni. Because I was new, she included me in her big circle of friends, and he was a part of that. I never made a move because I respected Jane and her friends. I didn't want to cause any trouble or make things awkward. She meant the world to me. Eventually, though, Bob and I became close friends. I grew to like him more. I also noticed that Jane rarely interacted with him, which was odd considering she was close to almost everyone in her circle, but I never said anything. I did end up telling her I liked him, though. She told me not to get my hopes up because he wasn't interested in any relationship. I was crushed, but tried to see him as a friend. He ended up confessing to me on my 21st B-day and we began dating, which obviously resulted in marriage, and here we are now. While we were dating, Jane started to distance herself from me. We talked about it when Bob and I first started dating, and I told her I'd break up with him if she weren't comfortable with it, considering he's her friend, but she rejected the idea. She hugged me and said she was happy for me, so I took her words for it. She still distanced herself, though. We'll call her husband, boyfriend at the time, Jim. He didn't attend uni, but his dad has a small construction business that he works at. Jim's a good man. He did everything for Jane, but due to our culture, women can't leave the family house until marriage, so Jane and I still lived with our parents then. So when Jim had saved enough money to buy a house, he proposed to Jane, and she said yes. Fast forward a year, and Bob proposed. I said yes. Until now, all Jane had done was distance herself from me, but when I sat my family down and told them the news, she cried. I thought she was crying from happiness until my mum told me I should have considered my sister's feelings before telling them. It was odd. It seemed like no one was happy. My mum took Jane to her room, but my dad stayed. He told me that Jane was having a hard time with Jim. I believed them. Since then, Jane distanced herself more from me. When I tried speaking to her, she'd reply curtly, and when I brought it up with my mum, she said that she was going through a hard time, so I shouldn't make it worse. So I left her alone. That was until Bob confessed that Jane had been texting him consistently for the past few weeks. He showed me the texts. She'd ask if she could call or meet him. She'd also attempt to text him late at night. The last one was when she sent him photos of her in revealing dresses and asked him to choose the prettiest. That's when he decided to tell me about it. Before anyone says anything, no, Bob didn't lead her on. His texts were dry, and frankly, if I weren't so upset with my sister, I'd say rude. He felt uncomfortable but decided to put up with it because she was a sister. He also admitted that Jane had confessed to him years ago, but he had rejected her. It felt like everything was falling into place when he told me that. She so hurt me that I immediately confronted her when I got home. I thought she'd at least be ashamed, but she said that I stole him from her. What's worse is that my mum sided with her. I've always felt she was my mum's favorite, but she was my favorite too. It made sense everyone loved Jane. I loved her, too, but she betrayed me in the worst way possible. She even said she hated me and didn't want to see me again. No one sided with me, so I packed my things and left. My dad told me that I shouldn't leave because it's not appropriate for an unmarried girl to leave her parents' house. My mum even called me a WH for leaving to go to Bob's place. That hurt a lot. It took a long time for me to get over what they did. When I think about it, it still stings. Bob and I lived together before marriage. I also cut contact with my family, and Bob and I got married without inviting anyone from my side besides a few close relatives. It was a lovely wedding, by the way. But a week ago, my cousin told me Jane had her wedding. I guess she went ahead with it. Today, though, Bob showed me a message he got on Instagram from her. He hadn't seen it because it was in the requests section, but it dated a week ago. She confessed to him again and told him she'd make him happier than me if he gave her the chance to. I am upset, really upset. He screenshotted it, blocked her, and asked if it was okay to send it to Jim, but I said no. I don't know why. Jim deserves better, but I don't want to deal with her anymore. I can't take it. Update: Bob sent the message to Jim even when I told him not to. He also screen recorded the message to prove it came from her account, which I didn't know he did. At least one of us is smart. I won't go into too much detail, but Jim didn't reply until last night. He called Bob, and they had a long chat. When Jim confronted Jane, she tried to blame Bob for coming onto her. They fought, and she left to stay with our parents. I know many of you told me to send the screenshot to my parents. I did. I sent it to my dad, not my mum. I'm sorry, but I still can't find the strength to talk to her, and I don't think I ever will. My dad said he and mum would deal with it and not tell anyone what Jane did. I feel worse now for even thinking he'd side with me. Lol. I don't know if Jim will divorce Jane, but he told Bob not to contact him anymore, so I think we did our parts already. Thankfully, she hasn't come to my house. Bob is my new family, so I won't think about Jane or my parents anymore.